Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to a brand new week here of the Cabral Concept Podcast. I'm Dr. Stephen Cabral, board-certified doctor of naturopathy, founder of Equal Life and the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute. And every single Monday, if you're new to the show, I love being able to bring you some content that I do hope that inspires you, but more than just inspires you, that enables you to look at life just a little bit differently. So that after you're done with the show, that you can contemplate the issues that we spoke about, and hopefully it leads to a new action in your life that enables you to get closer to your goals. And most of us, I think most of us, even though we're unique in our own way, we do have the same objective to have overall peace in our life, to have some level of joy for this existence, and to find happiness, whatever that might be. And that's a little bit different for you than it is for me. And one way that we do that is by not overreacting to our environment around us. Now, sometimes that's difficult and honestly is challenging, because when you think about it, sometimes you get bad news, and bad news is often unexpected, because if we expect the bad news, well, we've already braced for it. But what happens if you get bad news, you haven't braced for it, and you have an overreaction to the situation? A friend or a family member or maybe a coworker tells you something that you don't want to hear, right? Something negative. How do you react? Do you get angry? Do you start to produce lots of cortisol, lots of adrenaline and norepinephrine that, really gets you angry and your heart's beating, and then that night you can't fall asleep, or you can't fall asleep for the next week or 2 weeks because these thoughts are just running through your mind. Basically, they're on a loop, and all you can think about are all the negatives in the world. And you start to even see more, right? So like one bad thing happens at work, and then all of a sudden your relationships with your family get worse because you're in a bad mood. You're starting to lose your sleep, and since you're lacking sleep, you don't really want to exercise. You don't want to eat as well. So you start to eat poorly, right? You don't exercise as much. You start to gain weight. You have more inflammation. You start to feel bad overall. Then that begins to affect then your relationships even more. So what I'm saying is an overreaction in any area of our life. Now, I believe it's normal, right? We're humans. But what happens is it happening all the time? And does it carry forward? Does it affect you not just that one day, but into the future? What I want to share with you today is just a different take on this. We're all humans. None of us are perfect. I think it's going to be even harder on ourselves if we think that we are somehow going to achieve a point of zen, of perfection, where we just don't even care about the world around us. Now, I know that I've tried to achieve that in the past. I really have. And I actually didn't even enjoy that area of my life where nothing gets to me. I can't be rattled. I feel no highs. I feel no lows, right? That a lot of the ancient Vedas always used to talk about don't get too high on the highs, don't get too low on the lows. And there is some truth to that. There's no doubt about it. But I like to be someone who experiences life, who experiences all of the challenges and obstacles, but also all of the amazing joys, and to really relish in them. So I don't ever want to tell you that you shouldn't fully vest yourself into your life in this journey. But we do have to understand that it is a journey. And there are going to be some lows, or at least we'll be hit with some bad information at times. And my goal for you, though, is to simply never lose control of who you are and how you react. Again, none of us will ever be perfect, but is there a way that when you receive information, you see something is told to you, that you do not overreact? That you're able to do something that would enable you to go within instead of immediately begin to externalize all of the anger that you feel, the sadness that you feel, whatever it may be. I want to share with you that this is about simply, at times in life, and I know a lot of you on social media, people may run contradictory to you about a political party, about a worldview, about a cultural view, about a religious view. How do you react? What does that person actually mean? My goal is for you to start to look at this as an opportunity for you to rise above. If someone is looking to get a reaction out of you, or they simply characterize you in a way that isn't true, do you immediately respond back and try to protect your image, your ego, any one of those things? Or do you even retaliate back? Is that what's best for you? Because what I've found with myself and with many clients over the years is that anger, bitterness, resentment, revenge, a lot of those 8 emotional characteristics that I've talked about in the rain barrel effect, those, although we mean to direct them towards another individual, it is, as they say, the poison that we swallow ourselves, although it's meant for another, right? If we have anger towards another, if that person doesn't know anything about it, who's it affecting? Or the resentment, who's it affecting? You're carrying around with you all day long. Your anger, hopefully it's not hatred, but hatred, dislike, being upset at a situation, it's affecting you. It's affecting you more than anybody else. And it can literally make you sick. Your psychology has such an enormous effect on our physiology. So much more than I even knew back in my mid-20s when I was starting down this path. I didn't know really back then psychologically how much my own psychology was affecting my inability to finally get well. And now, even though I realize it, again, it doesn't mean that it's easy to do, but once you acquire that knowledge, you can't unlearn it. You can't unforget it. So you get better and better at doing something that allows you to just simmer that sympathetic nervous system, meaning the fight or flight, and gives you a different lens as to which to view it. And that is something called working with the breath. Now, it may sound strange at first, may sound a little bit of woo-woo, I understand that, right? But here's what ultimately dictates fight or flight or rest and relax. And it is your breath. If you hold your breath, which many of us do during stressful-based situations, the heart rate starts to get revved up, tension builds in the body, blood pressure increases, and we start to push out more norepinephrine or adrenaline. And then cortisol gets ramped up, brings glucose into our bloodstream, right, from stored glycogen. Well, during that time, we are revving up the fight or flight. Well, during that time as well, we're potentially suppressing parts of our immune system. We can create more exaggerated inflammation in the long run, not good for our overall health in both mind and body. So my goal for you then is to return to the breath. Immediately when you receive news that you don't like, you see a comment that you don't like, someone says something to you that is not who you are, and they're characterizing you in a certain way, because online right now, people love to tell you who you are, right? They love to tell you that you're this, that, or the other thing, or you believe in a certain thing, or who you are does not equate to the value of someone else, which is pretty wild, right? I mean, that's pretty crazy how we're saying that, since we are all unique and we're viewing life through our own lens. But what I want to share with you is this. If you're able to begin to correlate a negative response with immediately going to your breath, and then breathing in slowly through your nose and exhaling gently through your mouth, just like this. And that out breath is longer than the in breath. About 3 seconds in for most people works great. 5 seconds out. You want the out breath to be longer. Now, the out breath can be through your nose, but a sigh of relaxation, a breath out that just gets rid of the stress is really what you're looking to do. So even that exaggeration right there calms your body down. I do that just on purpose now before going to bed. Like as I'm getting into bed, just exhaling out all of that stress. If you can do that 10 times. Now again, just because your mind needs to know it's going to win, right? That's the conscious mind. So you just say, listen, I'm going to get to that stress in a moment. I'm going to get to this upset in a moment. First, I'm going to take 10 breaths. And by the end of those 10 breaths, which will take you about a minute, right? A little bit more than that. But when you're in the heat of the moment, sometimes it's a little shorter than 3 seconds in, 5 seconds out, but try to do your best, right? 10 breaths, just count with it as well. The counting helps to short circuit the thoughts, because now you have to focus on the count. So 1, and repeat just like that. 2. And as you are doing that, by the time you get to 10, this is my goal for you, and I'm telling you it works. You start to look at whatever the hurt was in a different light. You're having an argument with your spouse, your partner, a family member. Take the 10 breaths. You can actually just listen to them. You don't need to do the counting or the exaggerated breaths out, but do it while they may be speaking. Because if you come from a different vantage point, you want to allow them to speak, allow them to be heard. One of the biggest issues in arguments in general, in relationships, is that you're already trying to beat the other person to whatever they're going to say. Instead of, oftentimes, all that person wants to do is be heard. They don't even want necessarily a resolution, or to be honest, much of the time they know the resolution, but first they need to be heard. So by taking those 10 breaths, which takes you a minute, maybe more, and it doesn't have to just be 10, it could be more. You're enabling that other person to be heard without you interrupting. You can be listening, active listening. They don't have to know that you're going through your breath work. And then at the end of that, you can repeat back what you just heard. And that's the active listening part. So if they feel like they're not being listened to, that was the major thing, right? That was the major thing. It wasn't the doing the dishes. It wasn't doing the laundry. It wasn't any of those things. It was the being heard, being recognized, being felt as another human being, that their emotions matter. You can then repeat back, listen, I listened. This is what I heard. Is that correct? And most likely they'll say yes, and then they'll go on and they'll talk more. Allow them to speak. Once they've been heard, you can repeat back again. This is what I heard. Yes, that is correct. Great. And now you can share your vantage point, not necessarily from an argumentative standpoint, but understanding here's what we can do, right? We both care for one another. We both want to make each other happy. This is what I can do. Would that be helpful? And again, I don't want to go through the entire act of active listening, but just taking those breaths and allowing the other person to be heard it's going to do tremendous, tremendous things in your relationships. Now, what about online? You post something like this for a lot of our IHPs. Maybe you post something and someone comes at it and they say, that's not true. Science has already proven this, this, and this. And you say, well, okay. And you write back, here's some research, or here's why actually that this is valid. And they say, you don't know what you're talking about. And they say something hurtful, like whatever it might be. At that point, you have to go to your breath, relax, calm yourself down, and decide, is it even worth it for me to respond to this individual? And it's not that they as an individual don't matter. And this goes for anybody. You don't have to be an IHP. You don't have to be a certified health coach. You have to be a practitioner of any type, because you'll get this no matter what it is, right? Like you may be sharing like your favorite, I don't know, like you're going on a beautiful trip and you're staying at a beautiful hotel. And someone says, must be nice to be able to do X, Y, and Z, right? Those people are out there. Instead of being happy for you, they try to cut you down. And so you can decide, am I going to respond to this, yes or no? And you can simply, after you take those breaths, you can ask yourself, okay, I respond to this individual. Am I ever going to be able to satisfy this individual? You don't know them at all. You don't know the background. You don't know what they've been through. You don't even really know if they're being sarcastic or not being sarcastic. You don't know if they're just trying to make something up. You don't even know if they're a bot, if they're a real human or not. So the goal, hopefully, after taking those 10 breaths is, if I can have a deliberate and conscious conversation with this person where we can both share our sides and you want to engage in that, great. But all of it is that you trying to explain yourself and them telling you why your points are not valid, is that worth engaging? I would say use that time to answer someone else's. If you're an IHP, answer someone else's questions, right? Answer someone who wants to help, wants the knowledge, those types of things. And I mean, I do this myself literally in everyday life, although I don't run, of course, customer support for any of my companies and like that. People write in and they'll say, I completed one of your at-home labs 3 weeks ago and no one's gotten back to me. Is this some type of a scam? And I'm like, listen, I've been putting out a daily podcast and so much content for over 7 years. Before that, I wrote 1,200 articles, right? Like before that, and put it out. Every week I do an email series. Like all of this is completely free. I'm here, like I'm available. You know who I am, right? But I also understand, listen, maybe this person just found out about what I do a week ago. Maybe they were referred from another individual. And maybe, because they didn't get a response, it does look like a scam. I get it. I understand. So the best thing I can say is, apologies if you weren't notified. However, here's what we can do. You can simply email, and I just give them the email, and we'd be happy to get you those results. And typically all it is the person just wanted to know that this is a real thing. And just by that one message, because I can't help them. I don't have their order confirmation or anything like that. I can just share with them how to get the information they need. And after that, they say, thank you so much. I just didn't know where else to go. Easy, right? Like easy. But the thing is, people, and this is why it's not on you. People, oftentimes they don't do what we're talking about here on the show today. They automatically jump to conclusions because maybe in their past they had a bad experience. And if you've had a bad experience, you just replay that again in your head. So maybe, hopefully, I can create a good experience for them. So then they interact with another company and they can hopefully then trust that company and have another good experience. So, it's been said often, right? But we want to actually portray the ideal. And again, I'm by no means perfect, and you're probably not either, right? But if you can begin to act in a way that is close to the ideal as possible, it does two things. One, it opens people up for potential conversations in the future, which is amazing, right? And the other, meaning they can trust you, and that you didn't respond negatively, because it doesn't help anything. Like if I were to engage and yell back at people, how does that help? It doesn't help at all. Right? It doesn't help at all. And I get more angry. I get more upset, and I don't need that, right? And the other part is part two to it, is that if you work as close as you can to the ideal, and you know that you'll never be perfect, and that's okay, and so sometimes you'll mess up, and so you can be gentle on yourself, you're going to go to bed satisfied every night. You're going to go to bed saying, I did my best. I literally strove for the ideal. My goal was to be able to act as kindly as I can, act in a way that I would want other people to act with me, and to do my best in relationships, in work, in your community. And if you do that, that's all that you can ask for. But it starts with actually trying to rise above the situation, rise above the anger, the disappointment, the resentment, any of those things. It's your job first to rise above that in order to be able to respond appropriately. And I'm telling you right now, the easiest way to do that is going back to the breath. To breathe in through the nose for about 3 seconds, and then out through the mouth for 5 seconds, count up to 10. And if you can do that, you'll be able to elicit a rest and relax, a parasympathetic nervous system response, whereas then you'll be able to act like your best self, the highest version of you, where you can then decide to not respond at all, or respond in an appropriate way in which you would love to be responded to as well in the future. So hopefully this was helpful. I appreciate you. I thank you. If it was helpful, do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it can serve. And don't forget to comment below, giving me some of your best tips as to how you are able to rise above and respond appropriately as well. All right, take care, everybody. Have an amazing start to the week. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything. Functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.